It's such a key to healing anything else. Because if we truly believe that God is the miracle worker, then we have to obey His direction, because it's not about us in that time. It's about Him. Now, I like to think of it like the movie Airplane. Has anybody ever seen this movie? It's just a great older movie, but it's this classic scene where the pilots are both dead and somebody's got to fly this plane, and you see that all across movies. But just imagine if that were you. If you're sitting in that plane, the pilot has a massive heart attack, somehow the co-pilot also has a massive heart attack, and autopilot, we don't even know what's happening there. But everybody's freaking out, and somebody has to take the controls, and somebody's going to be called on. And now you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I should have sat in the exit row and agreed to help in times of emergency. The extra leg room probably wasn't worth it in this instance. But they call on you because you're you agreed, and so you you are called to do this thing, but you are not equipped to handle this at all. You've never taken flight school. You've maybe played Flight Simulator one time, and you crash. But now you have all these people's lives in your hands, but luckily, the flight tower finds the most experienced pilot in all of the United States of America, and that person calls you, and you're talking through the radio, and now it's your job to follow the directions that person gives you, because that person is experienced, that person knows what's going on, and as long as you follow their direction precisely, then you land safely, and you're the hero, and if you mess up, then you kill everyone. So it's really this dangerous kind of a spot. But sometimes God does the same thing for us, that God is the one who knows, God is the ultimate worker, and that as He gives us direction and we partner with that, then that's when we see results, and that's when we see positive things happen. Sometimes God asked Israel to do this, and they didn't really understand what was going on. In Joshua chapter 6, there's the record of the fall of Jericho, and the Israelites are coming, and they're taking over this land that God has given them. And they sent spies into the city of Jericho, and they saw that it was just incredibly well defended, incredibly well fortified, and that in their own eyes it really couldn't happen. There's really no way to knock down these walls or to get in, but they believed in God's power. And so God commanded them to march around this city 7 times, 7 days, and they decided, I guess we'll just do it. It doesn't make any sense. Probably people were mocking them as they did it. But you know what? They were faithful. They just believed in what God said. And at the end of that time, after they were faithful and they were just simply obedient without necessarily understanding what happened, they saw a victory happen. The walls got knocked down. They had a massive victory in that instance. When they were obedient, they were able to overcome impossible odds. When they were obedient, they saw success. But when they were disobedient, that's when bad things happen. See, right after this account, there's an account of a man's sin that causes the entire Israel army to fall because he's disobedient. So it's this wrestle between obedience and disobedience. And if we're obedient to God, then we can partner with Him.
And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, so if I'm obedient and I do what I need to do, then everything's fine. Is that my role? There's this part of there's a part that we have to play in our role where we have to be the initiators, where we have to initiate contact, and God seeks those who seek Him. And an example of this is in Mark chapter 5, where there's this woman with the issue of blood. For years she's been dealing with this. And yet Jesus doesn't come and approach her and say, I'm going to heal you, here's your touch, or you were obedient in this. No. What she did was just what anyone else would do. And in obedience, she said, I'm just going to seek after God. I'll do whatever it is to just get to Jesus. And what did she do? And if I'm not going to go into it, but she touched Jesus. She touched His garment, and she was healed. Many of us, not here, because this doesn't happen at this church. People like to sit around and say, well, I'll wait for God to just respond, and I'm okay. I'll sit here, and He'll hear my prayer, and then I'll just wait. We serve a God that likes to be sought after. We serve a God that is wanting us to pursue Him. And this is a characteristic of our role, is we have to initiate a contact and seek Him within our prayer, within our daily lives, and just say, God, and that doesn't mean that you're constantly begging Him. We're just saying, God, I trust in you, I believe in you. That's what this woman is. It doesn't matter what happens, I just want to touch you because I know you're the ultimate healer. And throughout this story, I won't go into it again, but you have to understand and realize That you don't come to church looking for the preacher or Benny Hinn or someone else, but the real source of who's going to do the healing or who's going to do the miracle in your life is Jesus. It always comes back to Jesus. It's Him working through people and individuals.
Right, and this woman was looking at the right place. She was looking towards Jesus, and that's where she found her miracle.
Yeah.
You know, going back to our stories now, you know, I think that what I did was biblical. You know, I read it in the Bible, and I applied it, and I thought that this would just happen, but in reality, I had a flawed understanding of what was going on. I had this understanding that everything depended upon me. That it was what I did, that in focusing so much on my role, that I thought I could make this happen. But in so doing, I totally forgot and neglected God's role in all this. That I needed to look to Jesus, that He was the ultimate answer. And so I was looking at myself, but, you know, I don't know if this is why God chose not to heal. I don't know why God didn't heal this man. I still don't know why. I don't know if I ever will understand that. But during this time, you know, I learned something about God's power and about God's control. And I think a lot of us have this skewed perspective that we can make something happen. That in ourselves we can pray the right prayer, we can do the right thing, and that if we pray long enough, hard enough, whatever, if we do any of those things, that it's going to make something happen. I like to think of it kind of as like the vending machine Jesus, that we think that we come to Jesus and we put the right amount in, and we just select what we want, and then we can receive it, and that's just how it is. But that negates God's role, God's will in this whole factor. That this relationship between us and God is what we really should focus on, and we look first towards God and not towards ourselves. There's a video that we thought was great we'd like to share with you guys right now.
What's the button?
There's a black screen.
Has anybody ever felt like this? Like this is how you pray? Maybe if I say this prayer, if I recite the Lord's Prayer, He'll hear me. And well, something that we've been talking about is just our roles within our stories. And if we go back to my story, I think the role I had to play is realizing that I had to trust God and understanding that I couldn't make this happen. Because I thought I needed to be in a church with thousands where it was just a healing crusade or of some sort and just somebody laying hands on me. But God chooses to work through certain people. And 6 of my peers prayed alongside with me. And I couldn't make this happen, but I had to learn to just place it in His hands and continually seek and trust Him. And throughout this message, we've looked at our stories. Eric and I, we shared our personal stories. We've also looked at stories within the Bible. And it's been made clear that there are roles for all of us. And I want to ask you to just think about where is it that you're at in your life when God's asking, what role do you have to adjust? Or do you have to fix where you're at right now? What role can you play? Whether or not you're crying out to God to perform a miracle in your life, maybe He wants to work through someone. Maybe He wants to work through you in a certain way. Just remember this, He's the ultimate performer.
We want to wrap it up this way. I want to issue a challenge to all of us in this place. After looking at God being the ultimate performer and ourselves as being able to come alongside and be obedient and partner with Him, that we want to look towards Jesus and put Him central, put Him at our focus.